Hare Krishna. So now I'm starting Govinda Dasera Kadaca study session. Gauranga left Panchavati in the morning and went to Damana town, not staying a day there. Leaving the place, the Lord went north. Then wandering for a fortnight, he went on the path in joy. Eventually, he went to the kingdom of Suratha. This is a place in Bengal, while the Lord is now traveling in Gujarat. There may have been a corruption in the text. Hare Krishna, sorry for the interruption. Eventually, he went to the kingdom of Suratha. Seeing an 8-armed form of Durga, the Lord rolled on the ground. Seeing her form, the Lord stayed there 3 days. Seeing the 8-armed form established by King of Surata, the Lord experienced unlimited bliss. The Lord experienced unlimited bliss. At Durga's temple, there was one sannyasi. He desired to inquire from the Lord. The sannyasi said, "Come here, respected sannyasi. I've never seen a devotee like you. Or seeing you, bhakti arises in my mind. Please tell me how I will cross the ocean of samsara. Please tell me how I will cross the ocean of samsara, how to worship the Supreme Lord. Saying this, my troubles will be destroyed." The Lord said, "I do not know the essential truth. Durga will destroy all darkness of the mind. The Ragatmika devotee sees Krishna just as a handsome hero sees a heroine. In that manner, call out repeatedly to Krishna. You will become free from the darkness of the mind." The Ragatmika devotee sees Krishna just as a handsome hero sees a heroine. In that manner, call out repeatedly to Krishna. You will become free from the darkness of the mind. As he spoke, one Brahmana brought a goat offering into the Durga temple. The Lord said, "You give her an offering to eat, but you do not know what your destination is later." Durga is pure according to scriptures. How can she eat something inedible? The king of Surata has given 100,000 offerings. In hell, 100,000 swords will fall on him. In hell, 100,000 swords will fall on him. You do not study the words of scripture. Killing animals, you enact dharma. She has made an arrangement for meat eating rakshasas to eat it when animals are killed. She has made an arrangement for meat eating rakshasas to eat it when animals are killed. All scriptures say that non-violence is the highest dharma. Be merciful to the jivas and bliss will manifest. Maya ties you up tightly. Maya ties you up tightly. Without a weapon, how will you cut the bondage? Maya ties you up tightly. Without a weapon, how will you cut the bondage? With attraction for tamasic food, you become attracted to Durga. With attraction for tamasic food, you become attracted to Durga in order to cut up sheep and goats. Hoping for deliverance in killing animals, you come to offer her animals. You make the Atma leave the body. How can the Atma be complete within a dead body? If someone with devotion to Durga cuts off your head as human sacrifice to her, tell me if you would grieve. Oh brother, the animals give up their bodies. I see it with my eyes. 8-armed Durga eats meat and liquor. The devotee hearing such statements will laugh. Concentrate on Sanatana Dharma. According to scriptures, give up low conduct. Durga, the greatest devotee, does not eat meat. Why do you mistakenly offer meat? If committing violence to jivas were dharma, why are dacoits not called devotees? If committing violence to jivas were dharma, why are dacoits not called devotees? Some fish live on eating other fish. Why do you not call them followers of dharma? Killing humans and killing animals are great sins. Committing these sins, one increases the three sufferings. Coming to see 8-armed Durga, he gave these teachings according to scriptures. The person who came to worship Durga heard the Lord's words with devotion. Hearing his words, he became detached. The Brahmana gave up sacrificing the goat. The best of Brahmanas worshipped with flowers and bilva leaves and returned home in bliss. The Lord sat close to the deity of Durga and offered her prayers with folded hands. Gauranga praised Durga Devi. He then ran towards the Tapati river, a great tirtha. He bathed at the three sandhyas in the Lord sat closely to the deity of Durga and offered up prayers with folded hands. Gauranga praised Durga Devi. He then ran towards the Tapati river, a great tirtha. Gauranga praised Durga Devi. He then ran towards the Tapati river, a great tirtha. He bathed at the three sandhyas in the Tapati river. He went to see the deity of Vamana. Vamana deity was established near the river on the edge of a piece of land. Tapati became for that reason, Tapati became a King Bali. Vamana deity was established near the river on the edge of a piece of land. King Bali had established the deity. For that reason, Tapati became a tirtha. Vamana had bathed in the water of Tapati. For this reason, they call Tapati a great tirtha. The Lord offered respects to Vamana's feet and went to see Yagnakunda. Leaving Tapati, the Lord went to the bank of the Narmada to see Yagnakunda at Bhamrocha town. At Bhamrocha, Bali made a Yagnakunda. The Lord went there with joyful heart to see it. The Lord went there with joyful heart to see it. Seeing the white trench with his eyes, Chaitanya experienced unlimited bliss. Bathing in the great Tirtha, Narmada, Gauranga went joyfully to Baroda. In the eastern part of Baroda was Danko Raji deity. In the eastern part of Baroda was Danko Raji deity. The Lord desired to see that deity. The courtyard of the temple was wide and clean. Shachi's son stood below that. The courtyard of the temple was wide and clean. Shachi's son stood below that. Shachi's son stood below that. Seeing the deity, the Lord offered respects and prayers. Seeing the deity, the Lord offered respects and prayers. He then returned to Baroda. The king of Baroda was most pious. He was engaged in serving Govinda. The king of Baroda was most pious. He was engaged in serving Govinda. He unbolted the Govinda temple with his own hands. He was glorified like Ambarisha. He was always busy for Govinda. He was attached to serving Govinda. With his hands, he picked Tulasi Manjaris and offered them to Govinda's lotus feet. With his hands, he picked Tulasi Manjaris and offered them to Govinda's lotus feet. Gauranga went to the Govinda temple in the evening. With his hands, he picked Tulasi Manjaris and offered them to Govinda's lotus feet. Tulasi Manjaris and offered them to Govinda's lotus feet. Gauranga went to the Govinda temple in the evening. Gauranga went to the Govinda temple in the evening. So seeing Govinda, he rolled on the earth. The Lord was always like a madman, absorbed in Krishna, wearing a torn outer cloth of a madman. The Lord was always like a madman, absorbed in Krishna, wearing a torn outer cloth of a madman. His limbs were covered with dust and his eyes were closed. His limbs were covered with dust and his eyes were closed. Seeing His limbs were covered with dust and his eyes were closed. Seeing Govinda, he showered tears. After 3 days, a disaster occurred there. Naroji died of fever. As he died, Gauranga sat facing him. He rubbed his lotus hands over Naroji's body. He closed Naroji's eyes and uttered Krishna's name in his ear. Naroji was most fortunate. The Lord gave Krishna's name to his ear. Naroji was most fortunate. The Lord gave Krishna's name to his ear. At the time of dying, Naroji folded his hands and glancing at the Lord said, Hari, Hari. Vishwambara put Naroji on his lap and buried him at the base of a tamala tree. Begging, he made Naroji a samadhi. Walking around the samadhi, the Lord did kirtana. Hearing from others this story, the king visited the sannyasi. Seeing the Lord, the king offered respects. The Lord said nothing good or bad. The Lord said nothing good or bad. With respect, the king spoke in order to give a donation. With respect, the king spoke in order to give a donation. The Lord said, I accept alms at the householder's doors. It's not necessary to beg for show. Thus, I do not beg at your door. Folding his hands, the king begged him to receive alms. He said to me that I must accept it. At an indication of the Lord, like an ordinary person, I took a fistful of alms from the king. At an indication of the Lord, I, like an ordinary person, took a fistful of alms from the king. Giving alms, the king left. Gauranga finished his daily rituals and in the morning rose and went west. Gauranga finished his daily rituals and in the morning rose and went west. At some distance, we came to Mahi River. The huge, swift-flowing river was a beautiful sight. To Mahi River, the huge, swift-flowing river was a beautiful sight. In the river, huge stones were quickly moving. Gauranga crossed the river in joy and arrived at Ahmedabad. It was an astonishing city of grandeur with many gardens and attractive houses. It was glorious with huge palaces. The people of that place were absorbed in serving guests. The city folk considered guests to be like devatas. Serving guests was the obligation of their life. People were enchanted with the beauty of the Lord. They came and stood all around with devotion. Someone said, listen, O young sannyasi, come to my house. I will give alms and serve. The Lord said, I will not go to a householder's, I will not go to a householder's houses. Today I will spend the night on the edge of the Nandani garden. There was a beautiful garden called Nandini. Vishwambara stayed at its edge. Seeing this, the townspeople brought alms. In the night, Gauranga made an offering. Many people came and surrounded the Lord. Seeing the sannyasi, they spoke with devotion. One learned man came to see him and began reciting Bhagavatam verses. The Lord said, please sing about the qualities of Krishna. I desire to hear many verses. Daily recite Bhagavatam. Seeing you, the pains of samsara are destroyed. Daily you daily sing the qualities of Krishna. You are a most fortunate Brahmana. The Brahmana conversed with the Lord. He called all the people. Everyone do good service to this sannyasi. He's not an ordinary sannyasi. He must be a devata. Seeing him, renunciation arises. Know for certain that he is not an ordinary human. He cannot understand all your language. Write whatever you can, indicating what you want to say by letters. Write whatever you can, indicating what you want to say by letters. Traveling for a long time in this country, Chaitanya understood all. Traveling for a long time in this country, Chaitanya understood all languages. Asking a few words to the Lord, I thought of keeping a record. Asking a few words to the Lord, I thought of keeping a record. I secretly made notes of the pastimes that I personally saw as the Lord. The pastimes that I personally saw as the Lord, always mad with Krishna Prema, wandered in various tirthas and provinces. In Ahmedabad, many people gathered to see the Lord. Seeing many people around, Gauranga gave them all the name and made them mad with the, gave them all the name and made them mad with the name. The Lord said, everyone chant the name with devotion. All suffering will go far away. No sorrow will remain. Do not hate anyone because of being filled with pride. Do not hate anyone because of being filled with pride. Without pride, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A person whose mind is not pure with bhakti rasa is not learned, being proud of his learning. A person whose mind is not pure with bhakti rasa is not learned, being proud of his learning. The person who considers a million obstacles to be like grass becomes mad with prema. The person who considers a million obstacles to be like grass becomes mad with prema. I consider him a devotee. The Shrutis say that the essence of Tattva is prema bhakti. Million obstacles, the person who considers a million obstacles to be like grass becomes mad with prema. I consider my devotee. The Shrutis say that the essence of Tattva is prema bhakti. The devotee of the Lord, mad with prema, does not want liberation. The person who has prema bhakti as his neck ornament is an eternal associate of Krishna. I will not argue, but serve the person who tastes the sweetness of Krishna prema. I will not argue, but serve the person who tastes the sweetness of Krishna prema. The person who cuts the bondage of this body, being mad with Krishna prema, is a great devotee. Chaitanya removed the dust of Maya from the eye of knowledge, cutting the material knot. For this reason, foolish people in this world are bewildered and think they are this material body. The person who gives up identity with the material body is the head of the temple. The person who gives up identity with the material body is the head of the temple according to the Vedas. The highest devotee is absorbed in Krishna Prema. The highest devotee is absorbed in Krishna Prema. He does not cheat, causing disturbances. The highest devotee is absorbed in Krishna Prema. He does not cheat, causing disturbances. The person who does not know the chief meaning of Vedanta considers the Jiva one with Brahman. Saying this, the next day, Gauranga joyfully went west, leaving the city. Going a little distance, he saw the Shubramati river, the Shubramati river, which sang sweetly with gurgling notes. A few men who were traveling to Dwaraka on pilgrimage were crossing the river. I saw among them two Bengalis, the great devotee Ramananda and Govinda Charana. After a long time, I saw someone from Bengal. My mind danced. After a long time, I saw someone from Bengal. My mind danced in bliss. My mind danced in bliss. I asked Ramananda where his house was. He told me he lived in Kulina Nagara. He told me he lived in Kulina Nagara. The Lord bathed in the Shubramati river. At that time, Ramananda spoke with me. Ramananda said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going with the Lord of Dwaraka, with the Lord to Dwaraka." On hearing Chaitanya's name, Ramananda's face immediately became joyful. Ramananda ran and offered respects to the Lord. Chaitanya asked him a few questions. Ramananda Dasa was the greatest devotee. The Lord pacified Ramananda Dasa. The Lord said, "Seeing you, O Ramananda, emotions from Bengal have awakened in my mind. For how many days have you left your house? For how many days have you come into this pious place? Let's go together to Dwaraka." Hearing this from the Lord's mouth, Ramananda Dasa was happy to remain in the Lord's association. Taking a bath, the Lord slowly went. He arrived at a village called Ghoga in Gandagrama. Ghoga in Gandagrama. At that place lived a prostitute called Varamukhi. One cannot describe her wealth. Through prostitution, she attained great wealth. She wore valuable cloth and ornaments. She lived in a big house. The wealth of a wealthy person eventually goes to the Lord. Hundreds of lusty people wearing baggy pants came to her house. She had many male and female servants. Everyone knew about her ostentatious display. There was a huge garden called Piara Kanana. There was a huge garden called Piara Kanana. The Lord went to the edge of that garden. At that place, there was a huge Nima tree. There was a huge garden called Piaram Kanana. The Lord went to the edge of that garden. At that place, there was a huge Nima tree. Thinking something, the Lord went and stayed there. On his order, I went to some householders' doors. On his order, I went to some householders' doors. I gathered some fruit and roots by begging. I went to the house. I went to some householders' doors. On his order, Lord went and stayed there. On his order, I went to some householders' doors. I gathered some fruit and roots by begging. After begging, I returned at 2 praharas of the day. With a happy heart, the Lord prepared an offering. After begging, I returned at 2 praharas of the day. With a happy heart, the Lord prepared an offering. With a happy heart, the Lord prepared an offering. The three of us, myself, Ramananda, and Govinda Charana, then took prasada. Laughing, I called Govinda my friend. Laughing, I call Govinda my friend. The Lord said, oh, why do you make this deception about Ramananda? The Lord said, oh, why do you make this deception about Ramananda? If Govinda is your friend, Ramananda is my friend. Laughing and laughing, saying, Ramananda is my friend, the Lord began chanting while clapping his hands. Hearing this from the Lord's mouth, Ramananda stood at one side, clapping his hands. Many people gathered to hear the name. Hundreds of streams of tears flowed from the Lord's eyes. They flowed like water from a syringe. Hundreds of streams of tears flowed from the Lord's eyes. They flowed like water. They flowed like water from a syringe. Seeing this, the people of Ghoga were astonished. Several people became mad with prema on seeing the Sankirtan of the Lord. The people's eyes flowed with tears. Many people came and stood in rows. One cannot describe the emotions of their bhakti. With unblinking eyes, they glazed at the Lord's face. With unblinking eyes, they glazed at the Lord's face. Sometimes the Lord laughed and sometimes cried. Sometimes he raised his hands and danced and sang. Sometimes he raised his hands and danced and sang. Sometimes perspiration flowed as he trembled violently. Sometimes perspiration flowed as he trembled violently. Sometimes he remained silent, overwhelmed with prema. Sometimes he staggered about with hair standing on end. Sometimes he staggered about with hair standing on end. Sometimes he shouted loudly, "O Krishna, my life." The people of Ghoga spread the news about the young sannyasi mad with prema for the Lord. The people of Ghoga spread the news about the young sannyasi mad with prema for the Lord. Saying Hari Hari with tears of bliss, he stood around with hair standing on end. With half closed eyes, with hair undone, the Lord's limbs became smeared with dust and earth. He shouted, "Where is my life, Krishna?" Sometimes he raised his hands and looked up. "Oh Govinda, where is Krishna? Bring him. Where is my life, Krishna? Show him to me." Saying this, one time the Lord ran away and spreading his arms, embraced the Nima tree. The Nimai was mad with prema for the Lord. I've never seen such madness. For many days I traveled with him in various places. I'd never seen on any day such possession. Ramananda and Govinda, Govinda Charana on the two sides clapped their hands. Ramananda and Govinda Charana on the two sides clapped their hands, shouting Hari again and again. There was a deep hole on the side of the road. He fell into it being overwhelmed. There was a deep hole on the side of the road. He fell into it being overwhelmed. One wicked fellow came in a busy mood. He said to the Lord, "Why do you cheat? You bewilder people and take their money. Then you wander about shouting, Hari, I've come to test the sannyasi. I've seen hundreds of false sannyasis." When the Pashanda said this, The villagers wanted to beat him. The Lord said, "Oh, brothers, who do you all beat? Make him drink the name of the Lord. His throat is dry from thirst. Give his mouth one dose of nectar. His heart is dried up without bhakti. By the name destroys fear of death. The Pashanda's mind is like a desert. Offer him the power of removing it. The O devotee, come to me. I'll give you the name of the Lord. I will remove the weight of your sins. By the power of this mantra, all suffering will disappear. By reciting the mantra, the name of the Lord, immediately the result will appear. By reciting the mantra, the name of the Lord, immediately the result will appear. The sinful person who chants this Maha Mantra will never go to hell. When such an easily available mantra exists in the world, why does the sinful person uselessly treat the wicked path? Saying this, Mahaprabhu went near him and leaning forward, gave to his ear the nectar of the holy name. To deliver the jivas, merciful Chaitanya wandered about everywhere without change in his attitude. Seeing all this from a window, Varamukhi began to consider. Seeing with her eyes the amazing mercy of the Lord, sitting alone, she criticized herself. Varamukhi said, "Oh, wanting money, I sold my body 100 times a day. I associated with other men, the form of sin. Ah, constantly I engaged in lustful play. Seeing this sannyasi equal to the Lord, I give up everything in his presence. A sannyasi does not touch money. Why do I attain such happiness by seeing him? Why do I live in the house of hellish enjoyment? Will the Lord not give mercy to me?" What mantra did the sannyasi recite in the ear of the wicked Balaji, delivering him? Going near him, I will destroy my sin. Going near, I'll embrace his feet. Varamukhi said this from the window. Hearing this, everyone was happy. The people spread the story in all directions and laughing caused an uproar. A little later, the prostitute came down and a maidservant named Meera followed behind. She said politely to Meera, "From today, I give all my wealth to you. There's much money, but I consider it insignificant. From today, I've become a beggar on the road." Meera untied Varamukhi's hair like a cloud next to stationary lightning, her hair extended to her hips. Sachi's son remained with closed eyes. Everyone saw the effulgence of his extraordinary form. They stood gazing at his face. Varamukhi, with folded hands, spoke again and again. "Oh, sannyasi, cut my bondage. I'm a great sinner, an insect from hell. If you do not give mercy, I will go away quietly. How will I deliver this body known as a prostitute? How will I avoid fear of Yama after death? How will I avoid fear of Yama after death? What is the need of this sinful body?" Saying this, she cut off her long hair and donned ordinary cloth without shame. Folding her hands, she stood in front of the Lord. The Lord said, "O Varamukhi, speaking a few words to you, follow all the instructions. Speaking a few words to you, follow all the instructions. Make a Tulasi garden here and staying within it, worship Krishna." Varamukhi said, "You are Krishna, you are the Lord." Saying only this, she fell at the Lord's feet. When she fell at his feet, the Lord stepped back 3 or 4 feet. Many people standing near, seeing the prostitute, blessed her. Mirabai cried profusely. Varamukhi, smiling, said to her, "Oh, Meera, listen carefully to my words. I've given you all my wealth. If guests come, serve them well. Concentrate on the Lord's name, living in a solitary place, swearing on me, do not commit sinful acts. Worship Radha and Krishna with attachment and prema. Express prema well, but avoid duplicity. O Meera, have affection for Krishna. Offer to Krishna your body, mind, and life. Then you'll attain the eternal wealth, Krishna. Hear my words with attention. Do not associate with anyone except Krishna. Hear my words with attention. Do not associate with anyone except Krishna. Krishna will definitely give you mercy." Even at the cost of your life, do not give up Krishna. Do not associate with anyone except Krishna. Krishna will definitely give you mercy. Even at the cost of your life, do not give up Krishna, your wealth. By the Lord's mercy, I've cut my bondage. From today, my residence is the Tulsi garden. Saying this, Varamukhi took up japa beads. She made the Tulsi garden, forgetting all pain. The Lord, giving bhakti to the renunciate Varamukhi, went running to see Somnatha. He went towards Jafarabada. After 3 difficult days, he arrived there. The people of Jafarabad were suffering greatly, but respected guests nicely. Many of the villagers gave alms. Making chapatis, the Lord made an offering. Going into a private garden, we spent the night with blissful minds. In the morning, we went to Somanatha. We arrived 6 days later. The temple did not have its previous glory. Seeing its dilapidated state, the eyes wept. There were signs of a broken mount. Seeing that took away one's life, the grandeur of the temple was lost. Seeing it, my Lord was overwhelmed with crying. Crying, he began to speak. What have the wicked Yavanas done coming here? In fear of the Yavanas, they hid the deity somewhere. If they show the deity once, my heart will be pacified. One cannot describe the suffering there. Gauranga cried for Somnatha. The Lord said, who has stolen his glory? Wanting money, the wicked have brought it to this state. Oh Lord Somnatha, wanting to see you, my prana cannot tolerate being most disturbed. I cannot tolerate separation from you. My heart bursts on account of you. What sin did the devotees commit? But by what sin did the Lord not see you? In separation from you, hundreds of priests are submerged in an ocean of sorrow. Did you, out of fear of the Yavanas, go away to Kailasha? Forgetting them, the dear devotees remain. Seeing all this, my heart breaks. Tears flow on my chest. Only broken remnants remain. How can the eye tolerate this sin? Oh Lord Somnatha, come within my heart. In my heart, I will see your form. Where did they hide you? I cannot see you. I cannot describe to anyone how my life air is reacting. O holder of the Ganga, people no longer come from other places to see you. Coming to see, pilgrims gave respect, but now that respect has disappeared. Filled with hatred, the Yavanas transgressed and stole the jewels and pearls. Where is Shiva staying? You have not mercifully shown yourself to the devotees. In this way, my Lord lamented. At this time, a storm arose in the sky. Dust flew everywhere and made darkness. The priest locked the doors of the hut. We all stayed outside the door. The Lord came and sat amidst us, saying, Hari. At that time, an Avadhuta sannyasi came and repeatedly glanced at Gauranga. His body was smeared with ashes and he wore no clothing. His hair was bound up in an astonishing form. His hair was bound up in an astonishing form. His eyes were red. He uttered Hara Hara. His heart was pure. His eyes were passionate to see the beauty of Shiva. His eyes were passionate to see the beauty of Shiva. He came and gave blessings with raised hand. He came and gave blessings with raised hand. The Lord, looking at him, stood up. He came and gave blessings with raised hand. Lord, looking at him, stood up. Lord, looking at him, stood up. He disappeared, saying something. Lord, looking at him, stood up. He disappeared, saying something. The dust rose in the 4 directions, making everything dark. Lord, looking at him, stood up. He disappeared, saying something. The dust rose in the 4 directions, making everything dark. I could not see where the Avadhuta went. My Lord laughed slightly and circumambulated Somnatha 3 times. With Ramananda, Govinda, and Govinda Charana, I did Sankirtana with the Lord. With Ramananda and Govinda Charana, I did Sankirtana with the Lord. Wanting the affection of Somnatha, the Lord did Kirtana, melting with prema. Several priests came and met us. They begged from us a little. Laughing, the Lord, Sannyasi said, I cannot give money, food. Laughing, the Lord, a sannyasi said, I cannot give money, food, or clothing. Hearing these words, Govinda Channa gave 2 coins to hands of the priest. The priest took him to the edge of a pure pond. The priest took him to the edge of a pure pond. My Lord took some water and placed it on his head. Leaving Somnatha, we went to Junagada. It was a big village, but with no tirtha. In the 4 directions were splendid palaces. Gauranga stayed in Junagada for 2 days. There was a place where Rana Chora was served. We went there to see the deity in the evening. An excellent Brahmana named Miraji served the deity. We arrived at his house. Miraji served the deity. We arrived at his house. He gave great respect. The Lord spent the night at his house. The Lord spent the night at his house. The Brahmana brought milk, sugar, and flour. The Lord spent the night in bliss. Nearby was attractive Grinara mountain. Vishwamra went there. Miraji came with devotion and told the Lord to stay repeatedly. Politely, the Lord said to the Brahmana, we will all go to Grinara hill. I will see Guru Datta's feet at that place. I want to give up my body. That's my request to you. Hearing the Lord's words, the respected Brahmana did not say anything, either agreeing or disagreeing. Chaitanya departed, and we, like shadows, followed behind. A group of sannyasis lived there. They all had worried faces. A group of sannyasis lived there. They all had worried faces. Their leader, called Bhargadeva, lived there in pain. Bhargadeva was sitting restlessly under a tree. The Lord quickly arrived there. Gauranga, seeing Bhargadeva in pain, ordered us to serve him. The 3 of us went to serve the sick man. The Lord said, have him drink Nima juice. Have him drink Nima juice. We made Nima juice and fed him. Have him drink Nima juice. We made Nima juice and fed him. He recovered from the illness and offered unlimited respects at the Lord's feet. He recovered from the illness and offered unlimited respects at the Lord's feet. He got up and praised the Lord. Rubbing his hands with devotion, Bharga said, be merciful to me. Lord, you are merciful. My heart is eager for you. You freed this wretch from disease. Mercifully cut my bondage of Maya, O young sannyasi, to whom are you deceitful? I desire to attain your feet. If you do not give mercy to the insignificant people, how will they call you merciful? I am old and my eyes are mistaken. I see you in heart a golden. I see in your heart a golden doll. Everyone says your complexion is golden, but my eyes see blackness. My eyes are making some mistake. Being merciful, deliver this sinner. The Lord was merciful to Bhargadeva and spread his Shakti. Suddenly in his heart, Bhakti appeared, saying something to Bhargadeva. The Lord glanced at him. At that moment, his eyes filled with tears. The sannyasi's followers did not understand the subtle truth. Bharga went with the Lord to Grinara. The hill was very high. Bharga went with the Lord to Grinara. The hill was very high. The 2 feet of Guru Datta were there at the top of the hill. The group of sannyasis went to see the feet. We went to see the feet at dawn. We went to see the feet at dawn. We approached the feet in the afternoon. The 2 feet shone on top of the rock, on top of a rock. Seeing them, the Lord offered respects. On the feet were signs of the flag, thunderbolt and gourd. On the feet were signs of the flag, thunderbolt and gourd. Seeing the lotus feet, the Lord said, "Hari, Hari." One priest stayed there at all times. Vishwambara asked him about the feet. The priest explained, when the Yadus were to disappear, Baladeva came here. He came to perform penance. He assumed a yogasana and began austerities. Baladeva remained in austerities in his yogasana. At Prabhasa, the Yadus began fighting in a drunken state. They fought with each other, drawing blood. Satyaki and they fought with each other, drawing blood. Satyaki and many other warriors went to Yamuna's abode. Satyaki and many other warriors went to Yama's abode. By Krishna's will, all the Yadus died. Finally, he saw Krishna on the top of the mountain. Seeing Baladeva, leader of the Yadus, the Lord spoke to him. Finally, he saw Krishna on the top of the mountain. Seeing Baladeva, leader of the Yadus, the Lord spoke to him about his own destination. I will go to Goloka. Having finished my work, I will not stay. The earth has become full of the Yadu sins. For this reason, the Yadus have been uprooted. If the Pandavas mourn for me, you should free them from grief. Draupadi is dearer than my life. I request that you first pacify her. Hearing this, Baladeva began crying. With politeness, he said, there are many devotees like Vidura and Uddhava. When you go, what will I say to them? What sign will you leave for them? Seeing that sign, they will be attracted to you. Knowing that you are their very life, you go to Goloka, but what will you do for them? They do not know anything except Krishna. How can you give them up and go to your place? Draupadi will lament. What will I say to make them understand? Please tell me. Hearing this, Krishna pressed his feet here. In that way, his footprints remain here. The priest saying this informed them of the incident. The priest saying this informed them of the incident. At that moment, prema arose in the Lord's heart. Gauranga, at that moment, prema arose in the Lord's heart. Gauranga, the abode of bliss, the abode of prema, beheld the footprints with steady gaze. Gauranga, the abode of bliss, the abode of prema, he beheld the footprints with steady gaze. As he looked, suddenly in his heart torrents of prema arose. With choked voice, the Lord said softly, O priest, O brother, what a jewel you have shown. You will see attainment of happiness at all times. I have not seen anyone with equal piety. If the footprints fall into the heart of a stone-hearted person, he has surpassed the happiness of Brahman. Gauranga joyfully placed the footprints on his head. Gauranga joyfully placed the footprints on his head. He rolled over them many times. When Prema rose, he ignored his body, thin as a stick. Touching those feet, the Lord closed his eyes. Tears flowed over his chest. Clapping his hands, tears flowed over his chest. Clapping his hands, he circumambulated the feet. Clapping his hands, tears flowed over his chest. Clapping his hands, he circumambulated the feet. His hair and clothing became loose. Seeing his bhava, Ramananda became unconscious. Govinda Charana rolled on the ground. Gauranga descended from the mountain and spent the night on the bank of the Bhadra river. Gauranga descended from the mountain and spent the night on the bank of the Bhadra river. Rising in the morning, we all crossed the river. Rising in the morning, we all crossed the river. Eventually, we saw Dhanvidhara jungle. Rising in the morning, we all crossed the river. Eventually, we saw Dhanvidhara jungle. Eventually, we saw Dhanvidhara jungle. Dhanvidhara jungle was very extensive. I became afraid on seeing Jharikanda. Dhanvidhara jungle was very extensive. I became afraid on seeing Jharikanda. At that place, there were various animals such as lions and tigers. Understanding this, I was most afraid. Understanding my desire by indications, the Lord laughed and said, "Why are you uselessly afraid? If chanting the Lord's name destroys fear of death, why are you afraid in Jharikanda?" We took a group of 16 people. Shachi Nandana then entered the forest. The beauty of the jungle was most attractive. How much can I describe of its beauty? Jungle flowers gave off fragrance. Jungle flowers gave off fragrance. Hundreds of trees and creepers swayed in the breeze. Jungle flowers gave off fragrance. Hundreds of trees and creepers swayed in the breeze. Various birds were perched on the branches. Various birds were perched on the branches. Hearing the singing, my prana was overwhelmed. Hearing and singing, my prana was overwhelmed. In the middle was one path, and on both sides was jungle. In the middle was one path, and on both sides was jungle. Hearing the singing, my prana was overwhelmed. In the middle was one path, and on both sides was jungle. Hearing the singing, my prana was overwhelmed. In the middle was one path, and on both sides was jungle. In the middle was the party of sannyasis. In the middle was the party of sannyasis. Above our heads, one could see the sun. Above our heads, one could see the sun. I looked around because of hunger. To whose door would I go for begging? There were no villagers here. Where would I receive alms? On two sides, fruit hung from various trees. Seeing the fruit, I became very joyful. I cannot describe the astonishing fruit. Many fruits were ripe, beautiful in rows. Many fruits were ripe, beautiful in rows. The fruits were similar to Kamaranga fruit, star fruit. I had never tasted such fruit. The fruit fell in heaps here and there. All the sannyasis ate the fruit with both their hands. I could not eat the fruit without getting permission, but seeing the fruit, I developed greed. For the Lord, I got goody fruit. In the afternoon, the Lord offered the fruit. Tasting several of those fruits, Gauranga said to eat it with pleasure. I filled my stomach as much as I could, eating them. As many as I received, I cut open. I filled my stomach as much as I could, eating them. Eating them. As many as I received, I cut open. As many as I received, I cut open. Govinda Charana ate only a little of the fruit. Ramananda slowly savored it. Everyone saw the amazing qualities of the fruit. Govinda Charana ate only a little of the fruit. Ramananda slowly savored it. Everyone saw the amazing qualities of the fruit. By this forest fruit, hunger and thirst were both relieved. Everyone saw the amazing qualities of the fruit. By this forest fruit, hunger and thirst were both relieved. The tree was as wonderful as a cooked sweet. I ate with greed that amazing fruit. Whatever fruit I saw, I ate. Cutting them open, I ate till my stomach was full. There was no trace of humans in the thick jungle. Everyone chanted the name there. Before evening, it was dark on the path. The Lord sat under one tree. In the middle of the jungle, the king had made a place. With the Lord, we went there at the side of a hill. The king had made a place. With the Lord, we went there at the side of a hill. The room was enclosed with forest wood and had no doors. All the sannyasis sat down there, clapping his hands. The Lord began singing the name. Hearing the name, the sannyasis became intoxicated. I went to collect wood and made a fire. I went to collect wood and made a fire. Bhargadeva chanted. I went to collect wood and made a fire. Bhargadeva chanted, clapping his hands. I had no fear in the jungle. Chanting the name, everyone passed the night. The next morning, chanting the name, Gauranga went out, remembering the Lord. The jungle was dense on whatever road we walked. Seeing Jari Khanda, my body trembled. The jungle was dense on whatever road we walked. The jungle was dense on whatever road we walked. Seeing Jari Khanda, my body trembled. The jungle was dense on whatever road we walked. Seeing Jari Khanda, my body trembled. Going a great distance, we came to a small canal. Going a great distance, we came to a small canal. There, Chaitanya took his bath. After bathing, we traveled quickly. Going some distance, we sat down. Going some distance, we sat down. The Lord told Ramananda to go and bring some fruit. Ramananda brought fruit and kept it at that place. Ramananda brought fruit and kept it at that place. Gathering the various types of fruit, Gauranga performed worship. Gathering the various types of fruit, Gauranga performed worship and offered the fruit. So fruit. Gauranga performed worship and offered the fruit. Enjoy. I've never seen such sweet fruit. Everyone gathered and filled themselves by eating the fruit. There was food for thousands on the road. How can I describe the mercy of the Lord? Finishing our noon duties, we departed. In the afternoon, we found a house. At the edge of the forest was an enclosure with pillars. Gauranga joyfully entered. The sannyasis brought wood and started a fire. Clapping his hands, the Lord began singing. He sang Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. He sang Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare. He sang Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare. As he sang, I saw that he was becoming unsteady. His hair stood on end and his body trembled. His hair stood on end and his body trembled. Gauranga began to cry loudly. Seeing his state, Bharga lamented. Seeing his state, Bharga lamented. The next day at dawn, we got up and left. The next day at dawn, we got up and left. A group of travelers were coming on the road. When they saw there were two parties on the road, everyone joyfully chanted the Lord's names. A group of travelers were coming on the road. When they saw there were two parties on the road, everyone joyfully chanted the Lord's names. In 7 days, we traversed the Dhanvidhara jungle. Everyone experienced bliss. In 7 days, we traversed Dhanvidhara jungle. Everyone experienced bliss. We all went happily to Gopi Tala near Amarapuri. Everyone called this Prabhasa Tirtha. Everyone called, we all went happily to Gopi Tala near Amarapuri. Everyone called this the Prabhasa Tirtha. Everyone called this the Prabhasa Tirtha. I was pleased in mind to see Prabhasa. The Yadus gave up their bodies there. The Lord went there weeping profusely. The Yadus becoming intoxicated with liquor, fought with each other and gave up their bodies. By Krishna's desire, all the Yadu warriors died. By Krishna's desire, all the Yadu warriors died. Not recognizing themselves and others. By Krishna's desire, all the Yadu warriors died, not recognizing themselves and others. Charudeshna, Suratni, Satyaki, Yuyudhana, Shamba, and Gada, all intelligent, fought with each other and died at this place. The Lord with miserable face cried at this place. When he cried, no one could be joyful. Crying, the blissful Lord fell on the ground. To take away the lamentation and misery of the world, to take away the lamentation and misery of the world, the name has been spread. To take away the lamentation and misery of the world, the name has been spread. The Lord at all times gave instruction to the people of this world. Chant the name and with prema worship the Lord. Chant the name and with prema worship the Lord. Day and night going from door to door. Chant the name and with prema worship the Lord. Day and night going from door to door, he drowned the world in spreading the Lord's name. Who will receive the name of the Lord? Come forward. Without a price, I give this jewel to everyone. Carefully take this jewel, which is priceless. Easily you will cross the ocean of samsara. If one time you utter the name, you will cut your bondage and go to the eternal abode. Other than the Lord's name, what can cut the fearful, huge, tough knot of Maya? Saying this, the Lord went from door to door. He scattered the rasa of prema in the world of samsara. He scattered the rasa of prema in the world of samsara. The people of Amarapuri gathered and on seeing the Lord became blissful. Became blissful like a madman. He ran about. Like a madman, he wandered about. Sometimes he exhaled loudly and became unconscious. The pupils of his eyes turned upwards. The pupils of his eyes turned upwards. His hair fell down like his back. His hair fell down his back. The tears fell constantly on his chest. Like a madman, his clothing fell off. His limbs were all covered with dust. Gauranga said, "Where is the Yagnakunda?" Gauranga said, "Where is the Yagnakunda?" The priest going with him showed him Prabhasa. The priest going with him showed him Prabhasa. We went south of Prabhasa and there saw the Kunda. The Lord offered wood in the sacrifice. The Lord offered wood in the sacrifice. At this place, the Yadus fought and died. At this place, Satyabhama made a pleasant forest and came with Krishna here. At this place, Satyabhama made a pleasant forest and came with Krishna here. She used to live here in the highest bliss. Seeing this place, intelligent Gauranga began crying. He shouted and constantly wept, calling out loudly. After a while, 10 priests came to see the place. Discussing here for 3 days, the Lord then went to Dwaraka. He did not see any other Tirthas at Prabhasa. Discussing here for 3 days, the Lord then went to Dwaraka. Discussing here for 3 days, the Lord then went to Dwaraka. He did not see any other Tirthas at Prabhasa. Came to see the place. Discussing here for 3 days, the Lord then went to Dwaraka. He did not see any other Tirthas at Prabhasa. We arrived at Dwaraka. Not see any other Tirthas at Prabhasa. He did not see any other Tirthas at Prabhasa. We arrived at Dwaraka in early Ashwina month. He did not see any other Tirthas at Prabhasa. We arrived at Dwaraka in early Ashwina month, constantly chanting Krishna's name. The Lord traveled. We went on the shore to Dwaraka. After 4 days, we arrived. After 4 days, we arrived at the estuary of the ocean. After 4 days, we arrived at the estuary of the ocean. We went on the shore to Dwaraka. After 4 days, we arrived at the estuary of the ocean. We crossed on a rope. In this way, we arrived at Dwaraka. We could see Raivataka mountain. We could see Raivataka mountain. Gauranga looked at the mountain in a daze. He laughed with a smirk. What was he thinking? With a happy face, Mahaprabhu, laughing, glanced at me, looking at me. He said, going to Dwaraka, offering respects. Everyone should become successful. Rub the dust on all your limbs and with devotion. You have seen Dwaraka as a result of punya. On the strength of previous births of Sukriti, you all see Dwaraka today. On the strength of previous births of Sukriti, you all see Dwaraka today. Hearing this, they all together offered respects. On the strength of previous births of Sukriti, you all see Dwaraka today. On the strength of previous births of Sukriti, you all see Dwaraka today. Hearing this, they all together offered respects. Gauranga's well of bliss rose, saying Haribol. Hearing this, they all together offered respects. Gauranga's well of bliss rose, saying, Haribol, the Lord rolled in the dust. The ocean of Bhava increased, crossing the boundaries. Who could control the Lord? He turned over and over on the ground. Eventually, he entered within the city. With hair standing on end, his body began trembling. His eyes opened and tears flowed. With hair standing on end, his body began trembling. His eyes opened and tears flowed. He said, where are you? Dwarakadisha, Dwarakadisha, Dwarakadisha. His eyes opened and tears flowed. He said, where are you? Dwarakadisha. He flooded Dwaraka with his tears. He flooded Dwaraka with his tears. His hair became loose. In a loud voice, Gauranga cried, one cannot describe this bhava. The Lord shouted repeatedly, Krishna, when he entered the temple of Dwarakadisha, he became mad with bliss and double feeling. The Lord shouted repeatedly, Krishna, when he entered, one cannot describe this bhava. One cannot describe this bhava. The Lord shouted repeatedly. One cannot describe this bhava. The Lord shouted repeatedly, Krishna, when he entered the temple of Dwarakadisha. He shouted repeatedly, Krishna, when he entered the temple of Dwarakadisha, he became mad with bliss, with double feeling. His hair stood on end like a kadamba. Rolling on the ground, he became covered with the dust. Rolling on the ground, he became covered with dust. Mad with bhava, the Lord glazed with intoxication. Mad with bhava, the Lord mad with bhava, the Lord gazed with intoxication. He rolled on the ground in front of Dwarakadisha. As bhakti increased, he fell in the four directions and laughed loudly in joy. As bhakti increased, he fell in the four directions and cried loudly in joy. Closing his eyes, he looked within. What did he see inside? Sometimes he glanced upwards, tears flowed from his eyes. On seeing Krishna, his hair stood on end. He remained staring at him. On seeing Krishna, his hair stood on end. He remained staring at him. He circumambulated the temple three times and humbly offered respects each time. In joy, Gauranga offered respects with 8 limbs. Seeing this, in joy, Gauranga offered respects with 8 limbs. Seeing this, Bhargadeva rolled on the ground. Gradually, it became known in Dwaraka. Everyone talked about the Lord. Everyone talked about the Lord. Someone said, brother, go and see the sannyasi. No one has seen such a sannyasi. No one can completely describe what they said. I do not think that there is another such sannyasi on earth. I have never seen such extraordinary bhava. That sannyasi is excellent in form and qualities. If you see him, that sannyasi is excellent in form and qualities. If you see him, bhakti to him arises in the mind. That sannyasi is excellent in form and qualities. If you see him, bhakti to him arises in the mind. One sees tears in his eyes. I desire to go and associate with that sannyasi. If you see him, I desire to go and associate with that sannyasi. If you see him, brother, you cut material bondage. If you see him, you will no longer have a taste for samsara. Seeing his form, the sinful person becomes immediately pure. I've never seen such a merciful person. He shows mercy, distributing the holy name to everyone. He shows mercy, distributing the holy name to everyone. His locks spread over his outer cloth. I've never seen such a merciful person. He shows mercy, distributing the holy name to everyone. His locks spread over his outer cloth. his locks spread over his outer cloth. On seeing his form, desires are fulfilled. When he sees an avatar of the Lord, it seems his heart is always full of bhakti rasa. The young sannyasi is always intoxicated with bhava. May the Dwarka inhabitants most joyful. He has no karma, no anger, and no material desire. He has flawless faith in Dwarka Disha. Calling the sinful, he gives him the name. Seeing him, the heart becomes materially detached. Gauranga remained in Dwaraka for a fortnight. Gauranga remained in Dwaraka for a fortnight. Daily he went to see the Lord of Dwaraka. Daily he went to see the Lord of Dwaraka. Daily he went to see the Lord with devotion and intoxicated the people of Dwaraka with bhakti rasa. Daily he went to see the Lord with devotion and intoxicated the people of Dwaraka with bhakti rasa. Devotion and intoxicated the people of Dwaraka with bhakti rasa. The people of Dwaraka surrendered to bhakti, all went to see Gauranga. The people of Dwaraka surrendered to bhakti, all went to see Gauranga. He discussed with all of them. The people of Dwaraka surrendered to bhakti, all went to see Gauranga. He discussed with all of them. Doing Kirtana, everyone danced in prema. The city became unsteady with the bhava of dharma. The city became unsteady with the bhava of dharma. Everyone's heart became pure. Gentle breeze began to blow softly at all times, so that all direction became fragrant with the smell of flowers. Everyone is blissful with the Lord's association, so that all directions became fragrant with the smell of flowers. Everyone was blissful with the Lord's association. Everyone was blissful with the Lord's association. All women and men were running. Everyone was blissful with the Lord's association. All women and men came running. One could see signs of auspiciousness in the four directions. All directions were pleased with the Lord's names. Priests and householders gathered and heard instructions of Dharma and spread that hearing. Priests and householders gathered and heard instructions of Dharma and spread that hearing. Priests and householders gathered and heard instructions of Dharma and spread that hearing. Gathered and heard instructions of Dharma and spread that hearing. And heard instructions of Dharma and spread that hearing. The Lord enlightened the persons who could not understand him. The Lord enlightened the persons who could not understand him. The Lord spoke various words and intoxicated them. The Lord spoke various words and intoxicated them. Sometimes the Lord spoke indistinctly. Speaking indistinctly, he made everyone understand. Sometimes the Lord spoke indistinctly. Speaking indistinctly, he made everyone understand. Somehow the Lord, possessor of all Shaktis, made people understand. Hearing his instructions, they all became unconscious. Hearing his instructions, they all became unconscious. Gyanis and fools all came. Seeing the Lord, their hair stood on end. One day in the evening, the Lord arrived quietly at the Krishna's temple. Many people followed the Lord. Not saying anything, Shachinandana went to the door of the temple and offered respects with 8 limbs. Seeing this, all the people became choked up. Folding his hands, the Lord offered many praises. Immediately, tears gushed from his eyes. His chest Immediately, tears gushed from his eyes. His chest flooded with the water of prema. He saw Krishna in whatever direction he glanced. Closing his eyes, he shouted Krishna. His hair stood on end as he became filled with prema. How will I tell the person who has not seen this bhava that he is a great fool? How will I tell the person who has not seen this bhava that he is a great fool? The river of Chaitanya flowed everywhere except the desert. No sinful person remained in the whole province. The Lord delivered the sinful by bhakti. The Lord delivered the sinful by bhakti. One day the priests created joy. They made a huge festival and arranged an offering. One day the priests created joy. They made a huge festival and arranged an offering. One day the priests created joy. They made a huge festival and arranged an offering. They invited devotee guests and distributed milk, yogurt, and puris. They made a huge festival and arranged an offering. They invited devotee guests and distributed milk, yogurt, and puris. One day, the priests created joy. They made a huge festival and arranged an offering. They invited devotee guests and distributed milk, yogurt, and puris. One day, the priests created joy. They made a huge festival and arranged an offering. They invited devotee guests and distributed milk, yogurt, and puris. Gauranga, jewel of good qualities, went among the lame and personally distributed prasada. In the night, everyone met and went to the cottage. In great joy, we passed the night. In this way, discussions were held for a fortnight. The next day, the Lord left Dwaraka. The next day, the Lord left Dwaraka. The Lord said, this time I will go to Nilachala. Meeting everyone there, we will pass time in bliss. With everyone, I'll go to Vidyanagara. I'll not go to Puri alone, giving up Ramananda Raya. I will not go to Puri alone, giving up Ramananda Raya. He's a great Bhajana Nandi. I will not go to Puri alone, giving up Ramananda Raya. He is a great Bhajana Nandi. Thinking of his conversations, my heart is pacified. Thinking of his conversations, my heart is pacified. He is a crest jewel of sadhakas. Living alone, he sings about the qualities of Krishna. Bhagavatam, living alone, he sings about the qualities of Krishna. Bhagavatam says that detached devotee is he who sheds tears on saying Hare Krishna. If a cobbler, Bhagavatam says that detached devotee is he who sheds tears on saying Hare Krishna. If a cobbler calls out to Krishna, a treasure with devotion, I offer a million respects to his feet. Ramananda, a devotee of Krishna, is to be worshipped. He is dearer than my life. I am fond of Ramananda like my very life. He is the greatest devotee and a renowned sannyasi. He is detached from material objects. He always sees Radha and Krishna. He considers great wealth to be like grass. Day and night he calls out Krishna with prema. He shouts, I have seen Krishna. Mad with prema, Raya stands here trembling. Mad with prema, Raya stands there trembling. By the name of Krishna, he discharges tears of prema. Becoming unconscious, he falls on the ground. My prana cannot tolerate separation from Raya. I'll go quickly to Raya. Saying this, the Lord left. Hundreds of people followed. With sweet words, he bid the people farewell. With sweet words, he bid the people farewell. He walked near Kadi. He took Bhargadeva's group as support. He took Bhargadeva's group as support. He took Bhargadeva's group as support. They came to the bank of the Khadi in order to cross. He took Bhargadeva's group as support. They came to the bank of the Kadi in order to cross. One by one, they all crossed. My sannyasi came to Gujarat at the end of Ashwina. We returned to Baroda town. Gujarat, my sannyasi came to Gujarat. At the end of Ashwina, we returned to Baroda town. We returned to Baroda town. The Lord chanted the name. I and Govinda Charana went to the householder's door to beg. I received alms of fruits, roots, and ground wheat flour. In a pure manner, I brought the goods back and prepared it. In a pure manner, I brought the goods back and prepared it. Making a residence at the base of a tree, the Lord offered the food. Making a residence at the base of a tree, the Lord offered the food. Making a residence at the base of a tree, the Lord offered the food. Taking prasada, everyone was satisfied. The next day we journeyed from Baroda. The Lord went south. After 16 days, we came to the bank of the Narmada river. We all bathed in the Narmada water. The Lord said, Bhargadeva, where will you go? Will you go with me to Puri? Bharga, squeezing his hands in front of the Lord, said, I will go south. King Mohanta Aditya serves Rana Chodaji with devotion at Bom Nagara. Receive my respects, mercifully put your feet on my head. Saying this, Bhargadeva rolled on the ground and held the Lord's feet. Saying this, Bhargadeva rolled on the ground and held the Lord's feet with his two hands. He said, you are Krishna, you are my Lord. Give me the gift of remembering your feet when I die. You went to Dwarka to see your own pastimes, to fool the people. Put your feet on my head. You cannot fool me anymore. The Lord said, oh Bharga, why do you say this? Why say this to me? Being detached, I wander on various paths. I have no food and no clothing. I'm most deprived. I go door to door begging. Do not say such words to me again. Say the name of Krishna with faith. That faith in Krishna will enable you to meet Krishna. The Supreme Lord is condensed knowledge and bliss. By bhava for his lotus feet, you will cross the material ocean. Think of the Lord's feet with prema bhakti. He will definitely show himself to you. The Lord is very merciful to the devotee. Meditate upon him. He is the shelter of the shelterless. Saying this, the Lord touched Bhargadeva. At that moment, Bharga's body became pure. Standing with folded hands, Bhargadeva looked around. Standing with folded hands, Bhargadeva looked around. Having become successful, finally he left. There were some sannyasis with Bharga. There were some sannyasis with Bharga. They came and stood in front of the Lord. One by one, they offered respects to the Lord. The Lord departed from them, after saying sweet words. Bhargadeva went south. The Lord traveled to Puri with attraction. With Ramananda and Govinda Charana, I spent the day on the bank of the Narmada. The next day, we walked along the bank and arrived at Dohada town. Begging, I brought some flour. The Lord made chapatis and offered them. We spent the night at Dohada town. Under a tree, Gauranga chanted the names. Yet at dawn, we rose and went to Kukshi town. At dawn, we rose and went to Kukshi town. We saw many devotees there. Wherever we went, we saw Tulsi groves. All the villages were devotees of Krishna. In the evening, everyone chanted the name. Seeing this, in the evening, everyone chanted the name. Seeing this, my Lord's hair stood on end. In the evening, everyone chanted the name. Seeing this, my Lord's hair stood on end. One poor Brahmana lived there in his house. He had deities of Lakshmi and Janardana. He worshipped them with devotion. Hearing this, the Lord went to his house. The Brahmana, seeing the Lord, welcomed him with many services. He asked many questions in serving the guests. I am called a Brahmana, but I'm poor. Why do you put your feet in my house? How can I serve a sannyasi? I think dharma has been destroyed in my house. The Lord said, do not worry, sir. The Creator will give food in plenty. Everyone is mistaken concerning why and how the Lord acts. Krishna thinks of everything always. Please listen to the bare facts. The Creator says that He gives to all so that they can eat. Why does the person without friends eat under a tree? Who will give food to a miserable insect in a forest? O Brahmana, why do you think falsely? At that time, one Vaishya brought milk, sugar, and flour to the Brahmana's house and gave it to him. The Vaishya said, oh, listen, O respected Brahmana, you have received great mercy. In a dream, I saw your Lakshmi Janardana. They wanted to eat sweet rice in my house. Narayana in human form stays in your house. They wanted to eat sweet rice in my house. Narayana in human form stays in your house. In the dream, Narayana showed this to me. I saw this last night in a dream. Thus I brought milk and sugar, O Brahmana, cooking the sweet. O Brahmana, cooking the sweet rice, offer it to Narayana. Hearing of this incident, the Brahmana began crying. He said, from where has the milk and sugar come? The Lord said, Narayana has supplied it. The Brahmana said, I'm a sufferer. This is astonishing. The Lord said, Narayana. The Brahmana said, I thought about you. The Lord said, Narayana has brought this. The Vaishya glanced at the Lord's face, becoming unconscious on seeing something. The Brahmana said, oh Vaishya, what are you seeing? Oh brother, the Vaishya said, I see something confusing. Listen to what I say to you, O best of Brahmanas. In the dream, I saw that human form of this sannyasi. Hearing this, the Lord said to the Vaishya, why do you cause trouble with this lie again and again? Who did you see in your false dream? Why do you without reasons cause disturbance? Oh Vaishya brother, you are most fortunate. Thus the Lord showed himself in a dream. Oh Vaishya brother, you are most fortunate. Thus the Lord showed himself in a dream. Oh Vaishya brother, you are most fortunate. Thus the Lord showed himself in a dream. Thus the Lord showed himself in a dream. Thus the Lord showed himself in a dream. I'm an ordinary sannyasi. I've come to eat at the Brahmana's house. The Brahmana said, what is the necessity of this talk? I want to serve the guests, thinking of Narayana. Weeping, the Brahmana said to the Lord, cooking the sweet rice, you should offer it. So smiling, the Lord cooked the sweet rice. The Brahmana walked about nearby. In bliss, everyone took prasada. The Brahmana walked about nearby. In bliss, everyone took prasada. With his own hand, the Lord distributed the prasada. There was huge festival in the Brahmana's house. The next day in the morning, the Lord rose and started his journey. There was huge festival in the Brahmana's house. The next day in the morning, the Lord rose and started his journey. While he walked, the Brahmana came near. He spoke miserable words with folded hands. The Lord bid him farewell and went out in the morning. The Vaishya hid himself. He followed behind the Lord on the path. Holding the Lord's feet, he began weeping. Merciful Chaitanya, holding the Lord's feet, he followed behind the Lord on the path. He followed behind the Lord on the path. Holding the Lord's feet, he began weeping. Merciful Chaitanya lifted him up. The Lord said, you are devotee. What are you doing, brother? The Vaishya said, be merciful to me, O Gosai. I think I cannot leave you. Give me the mercy of the dust from your feet. Laughing, Chaitanya offered once the sweet name of the Lord in his ear. By the Lord's mercy, sins were destroyed. Being completely detached, the Vaishya went away. By the mercy of the Lord, the Vaishya giving up material life made a tulsi grow far away and stayed there. By the mercy of the Lord, the Vaishya giving up material life made a tulsi grow far away and stayed there, made a tulsi grow far away and stayed there. He did not converse with people. He always meditated on Krishna with flute in his mouth. He said, "Oh Lord, give me mercy. Destroy all the suffering of the sinner by your mercy." Staying in a hut, he did not go to his house. Saying the name of the Lord, he would beg from door to door. Vishwambara gave mercy to the Vaishya and left the town, going through the jungle. We all went through the dense jungle and for 2 days did not see any town or village. We all went through the dense jungle and for 2 days did not see any town or village. We all went through the dense jungle and for 2 days did not see any town or village. Leaving the jungle after 2 days, we arrived at Amajora town. We all went through the dense jungle and for 2 days did not see any town or village. Leaving the jungle after 2 days, we arrived at Amajora town. We were disturbed with hunger pains. The unchanging Lord said to me, "Hari Hari." He said, "When the Lord brings food, then I will accept food." I begged and brought 2 seras of flour. The Lord made 16 chapatis. At that time, one girl came. She said, "Give me a little as I'm hungry. I have no food, no clothing. I have nothing to eat. Going on the road with children, I beg and eat." Road with children, I beg and eat. Hearing her words, the merciful Lord gave her his food. The suffering girl went away satisfied, and the Lord spent the day without eating. In the evening, I begged and brought some food. The Lord ate the fruit and passed the. In the evening, I begged and brought some fruit. The Lord ate the fruit and passed the night. At this place, there was Lakshmana Kunda. The Lord ate and the fruit and passed the night. At this place, there was Lakshmana Kunda. Hearing of this in the morning, we went there. The attractive pond was at the edge of the town. It was small, surrounded by hills. It was small, surrounded by hills. The attractive pond was at the edge of the town. It was small, surrounded by hills. When Sita was thirsty, Lakshmana shot an arrow and made this kunda. The attractive pond was at the edge of the town. It was small, surrounded by hills. It was small, surrounded by hills. When Sita was thirsty, Lakshmana shot an arrow and made this kunda. It became famous. It became famous as Lakshmana's Kunda. Sita said it was a great Tirtha. It was most attractive and very deep, very deep. Sita said it was a great Tirtha. It was most attractive and very deep. Bathing in it, the body became cool. Merciful Gauranga bathed in the Tirtha and chanted the name. On hearing this, the heart melted. The next day, we went to the top of the Vindhya mountain where there was beautiful Mandura town. In a cave in the mountain, one man lived. In a cave in the mountain, one man lived performing austerities. Hearing of this man, Gauranga went there to see him. The sannyasi there lived there meditating. His form was very sweet. His limbs were the color of molten gold. Rays of his effulgence spread in the 4 directions. He had long fingernails. He had long fingernails. His beard and mustache hung over his chest. His body was just like skin and bones. He considered his body as a cage. Naked, he meditated with concentration. Seeing that form, bhakti rose. He seemed like a wooden deity. I looked at him repeatedly. He seemed like a wooden deity. I looked at him repeatedly. Mahaprabhu came in front of him and stood there. The austere man broke his meditation and began looking around. At that moment, their eyes At that moment, the 4 eyes met. Suddenly, the tapasvi laughed. The Lord held a conversation with him. He then descended the mountain and came to Mandala town. On the left was, the Lord had a conversation with him. He then descended the mountain and came to Mandala town. On the left was Vindhya mountain, and on the right was the Narmada river. In 3 days, we went from there to the Devaghara. At Devaghara, there was a leper. He was called Adi Narayana. He was the best of merchants. He was wealthy, but always mentally overwhelmed. There was a banyan tree outside the village. The merciful Lord stayed near it. The 4 directions were illuminated by the Lord's beauty. This became well known to the public. Several persons came to see the sannyasi. I went to the town to collect alms. Ramananda went to collect flowers. Govinda Charna went to the river bank. That day, I received atapa rice. Ramananda brought various types of flowers. After bathing, the Lord started worship. Govinda brought dry wood. Offering food, Gauranga began chanting. As he chanted, his hair stood on end. Choked with prema, he began dancing. Choked with prema, he began dancing. Becoming unconscious, he fell on the earth. Choked with prema, he began dancing. Becoming unconscious, he fell on the earth. Hearing this, many people came. Becoming unconscious, he fell on the earth. Hearing this, many people came. The leper came and stood by his side. Becoming unconscious, he fell on the earth. Hearing this, many people came. The leper came and stood by his side. He came and cried, folding his hands. He said, while profusely weeping, "Deliver me." Adinarayana was the best of devotees. The Lord made him eat prasada. Eating with devotion, he became free. He became free of leprosy. Taking prasada, his leprosy was destroyed. Taking prasada, his leprosy was destroyed. Hearing the news, many sick people came. Taking prasada, his leprosy was destroyed. Hearing the news, many sick people came. Seeing the confusion, the Lord looked around. The Lord looked around. He glanced at me, giving a signal. He glanced at me, giving a signal. Taking the wooden shoes, I started the journey. Taking the wooden shoes, I started the journey. On that pretext, the Lord left the town. Adinarayana went along with him. The Lord said, "You have become freed by the mercy of Krishna. Why do you come with me? Go to your house and meditate on Krishna's feet." Adinarayana said, "I will not go home. I'll travel with you from place to place." The Lord said, "Go home and enjoy your wealth." Adinarayana said, "What is the use of wealth, O merciful Lord? If you do not let me accompany you, I'll spend my time locked in a hut." The Lord said, "Make a Tulsi garden, live there and pass your time." Hearing the Lord's words, Adinarayana gave up everything and chanted Hari Hari. He became the best devotee. He passed his time in chanting Krishna's name, offering respects to the Lord's feet. Adinarayana bid farewell to the Lord. He passed his time in chanting Krishna's name. He passed his time chanting Krishna's name, offering respects to the Lord's feet. Adinarayana bid farewell to the Lord. He passed his time in chanting Krishna's name. He became the best devotee. He passed his time in chanting Krishna's name, offering respects to the Lord's feet. Offering respects to the Lord's feet. Adinarayana bid farewell to the Lord, offering respects to the Lord's feet. Adinarayana bid farewell to the Lord. Adinarayana bid farewell to the Lord. At 30 kroshas distance from Shivani town, Vishwambara went there in 2 days. Malaya mountain was east of Shivani. The Lord went there with great attraction. The Lord saw Malaya mountain and then came to the town of Chandipura. Seeing Chandi Devi at Chandipura, Gauranga went to Raipura while remembering the Lord. Gauranga went to Raipura while remembering the Lord. At Raipura, many people desiring to see the Lord came near him. Gauranga, seeing the misfortune of the Jiva, spread bliss of the name at every house. The Lord then went to Vidyanagara. Seeing Ramananda, he folded his hands. The Lord then went to Vidyanagara. Seeing Ramananda, he folded his hands. The Lord then went to Vidyanagara. Seeing Ramananda, he folded his hands. Ramananda Raya came and offered respects. The Lord then went to Vidyanagara. Seeing Ramananda, he folded his hands. Ramananda Raya came and offered respects, holding his hand. The Lord embraced him. Holding his hands, the Lord embraced him. The greatest devotee backed away, began holding his hand. The Lord embraced him. The greatest devotee backed away, began weeping with great humility. The Lord said, "Oh Raya, come with me. Together we will go and see Jagannatha. You, I, and Bhattacharya will go to Puri and chant the name to full satisfaction. I will be very happy speaking Tattva with you. Come with me. We will go to Puri." Raya said, "You go ahead. A few days later, I will go to Puri." Hearing this, Mahaprabhu smiled slightly and rising at dawn went north. That day we went very far, and in 6 days, the four of us arrived to Ratnapura. Leaving Ratnapura, we came to the Mahanadi river. Leaving Ratnapura, we came to the Mahanadi river. Going along its bank, we traveled east. At some distance, Mahaprabhu went to Swarnagada. At some distance, Mahaprabhu went to Swarnagada. The Lord saw the beauty of the town. How can I describe the beauty of the astonishing fort? Look in four directions. Looking in four directions, it was amazing. A king named Shantishwara lived at the fort. A messenger went and spoke to the king. Hearing the pleasant news, the king went humbly to see the Lord. Seeing the Lord, the very pious king folded his hands and rolled on the ground. The king said, "Oh, respected sannyasi, please listen. Please purify my house today. Be merciful and today eat at my house." Saying this, the king recited many prayers. Hearing this, the Lord glanced at me. Saying this, the king recited many prayers. Hearing this, the Lord glanced at me. I wanted to take alms from the king. Saying this, the king recited many prayers. Hearing this, the Lord glanced at me. I wanted to take alms from the king. The king gave plenty of alms. The king gave plenty of alms, standing with folded hands. In the afternoon, the king bid farewell. Mahaprabhu spent in the afternoon, the king bid farewell. Mahaprabhu spent the night under the tree. In the morning, we all went to Sambalapura. We arrived in the evening. The city was very beautiful, surrounded by mountains. We spent the night happily in Sambalapura. At 10 kroshas distance was Brahmara town. Mahaprabhu went there. Many devotees lived in Brahmara. The Lord stayed there 4 days. An Orient Brahmana named Vishnu Rudra stayed there serving Krishna. He was very devotional. The Lord went to see him. The Lord conversed with him. And then went happily to Pratapana town, giving them the name of the Lord. He then went to Dasapala, where a Pashanda magician who greatly suffered lived. Giving them the name of the Lord, he then went to Dasapala, where a Pashanda magician who greatly suffered lived. The Lord made everyone insane with the holy name. Gauranga was at all times mad with bliss. By the name, he delivered many sinners. The next day, we went to Rasala Kunda. There we saw Kurma Deva. Seeing Kurma, the Lord went mad with prema. Tears streamed rapidly from his eyes. Folding his hands, he recited many verses in praise of Kurma Deva. He fell with force on the ground. The people of Rasala Kunda had almost no devotion. Seeing that the Lord stayed there 3 days, calling all men and women, the Lord delivered them by the holy name. By the Lord's mercy, all became intoxicated. They began to chant the name with devotion. At that place, there was a Madhya Brahmana. At that place, there was a Madhya Brahmana. His son met the Lord. His son met the Lord. The son said, "Oh, be merciful to me." At that place, there was a Madhya Brahmana. His son met the Lord. His son met the Lord. The son said, "Be merciful to me, take away my sorrow by the dust of your feet. I am a great rascal. I know nothing. Deliver me by bhakti. My father cannot tolerate Krishna's name. Mercifully give bhakti to his heart. It's sad that my father hates Krishna. Oh, merciful Lord, give bhakti to his mind. When he sees devotees, he scolds them. Mercifully destroy all his sins. I have heard that you are the abode of mercy. Oh, merciful Lord, give this benediction. Hearing the child, the Lord put his hand on his back. Suddenly, bhakti arose in his heart. Hearing this, the Brahmana became blind with anger. With stick in hand, he ran to the Lord. The Brahmana said, with stick in his hand, he ran to the Lord. The Brahmana said, listen, O wicked pretender, you have destroyed my only son. I will beat you with the stick. See who can protect you here. Folding his hands, the son, while weeping, said, please, by your mercy, forgive the offense of my father. My most ignorant father does not know you. Forgive me as a servant of your feet. Hearing this, several men came to beat the Brahmana, not listening to anyone's words. The Brahmana started to beat Chaitanya with a stick. The Brahmana said, you made my son into a devotee, deceiving him. You will take him away, bewildering the boy. Where will you go? This time I will punish you so you will understand. I have seen many sannyasis. You will receive teachings from me. Smiling, Chaitanya said, oh brother, listen. When you beat me, I want the name. As many times as you chant the name, that many times you can beat me. When you beat me, I want the name. As many times as you chant the name, that many times you can beat me. If you want to beat me, then chant the name Hare Krishna. I offer you my back. One time, chant the name and beat me. Hearing this, the Brahmana's son folded his hands and facing the Lord spoke. He said, oh Lord, forgive my father, deliver him from hell. I beg at your lotus feet. That peaceful Nimai does not speak like this to people. Slightly smiling, the Lord said to me, anyone born in this family will not fear hell. Millions of men will go to Vaikuntha. Will not fear hell. Millions of men will go to Vaikuntha. Saying this, he glanced at the Brahmana and said, oh Brahmana, say the name of the Lord while beating me. Your hard heart is almost like a desert. May it become sweet by the mercy of Krishna. There is no harm if you beat me, oh brother. Just say one time, Hare Krishna. Hearing such words, the Brahmana began trembling. In fear, he urinated in his clothing. He covered and could not see. Overcome with weeping, he fell on the ground. By the influence of the Lord, the Brahmana overwhelmed, held the Lord's feet with his hands. The Brahmana said, oh, merciful Lord, I request you to deliver me from hell. Having offended you, I am most fearful. By your mercy, forgive my offense. Oh, merciful one, not knowing, I said many things to you. Oh, protector, give punishment that you judge fit. Seeing the humility of the Brahmana, leaning forward, Gauranga joyfully gave the nectar of the name in his ear. The Brahmana became successful and his mind became pure. The Brahmana became successful and his mind became pure. He took permission to leave holding the Lord's feet. The Brahmana became successful and his mind became pure. He took permission to leave holding the Lord's feet. Having delivered the passion of Brahmana, the Lord went to the bank of Rishikulya river. On both sides of the river, many sages lived. All came and requested Gauranga. When the Lord came to that river, the news reached Puri. When the Lord came to that river, the news reached Puri. The Lord stayed there for 3 days. When the Lord came to that river, the news reached Puri. The Lord stayed there for 3 days. The Lord stayed there for 3 days. He purified Rishi Kulya with the name of the Lord. When the Lord came to Alalanatha, Gadadhara and Murari came running. Gadadhara and Murari came running. Kanchana Acharya came with deep attachment, tracing of the Lord. He came before the others. Sarvabhauma came blowing 2 horns. Narahari was seen with a flag. Haridasa, Ramadasa, and Krishnadasa came quickly, breathing heavily. Jagannath Das and Devaki Nandana, Chota Haridasa and Single Lakshmana, Vishnudasa, Puridasa and Damodara, Narayana Tirtha and Giridhara Dasa, Saraswati Puri, and unlimited Brahmanas came in lines to see the Lord. And unlimited Brahmanas came in lines to see the Lord. Rama Pandita played a horn. Balaramadasa Rama Pandita played a horn. Balaramadasa came, his hair standing on end. Hundreds of scholars were seen. My heart began dancing in bliss. Hundreds of scholars were seen. My heart began dancing in bliss. Hundreds of scholars were seen. My heart began dancing in bliss. My heart began dancing in bliss. Some danced, some laughed, and some sang. Some danced, some laughed, and some sang. With one mouth, one cannot describe the bliss. Thousands of people surrounded the Lord, mad with bliss. They all started to chant the name. Murari and Mukunda came and embraced him. Gupta fell down on his knees nearby. Siddha Krishnadasa came and offered respects. Taking his hand, the Lord embraced him. All the devotees together brought the Lord. Many devotees were beating drums, making the Lord's eyes move about in bliss. Many devotees joined in Kirtana. Gauranga swinging his head danced in joy. Many devotees joined in Kirtana. Gauranga swinging his head danced in joy. Seeing Kanchana, the Lord saying Haribol, spreading his arms, embraced him. Many devotees joined in Kirtana. Gauranga swinging his head. Danced in joy, seeing Kanchana, the Lord saying Haribol, spreading his arms, embraced him, spreading his arms. Gauranga began dancing. Sarvabhauma rolled at his feet. Holding his hand, Sarvabhauma began to speak. The arrow of separation pierced my heart. I tolerated your separation as a great fool. I maintained my life for so many days. Mercifully tread upon me with your feet. Then I will know that you have affection for me. Saying the Sarvabhauma's voice choked up, Gauranga lifted him up and embraced him. While chanting the Lord's name, everyone went to Puri with the Lord. Hundreds upon hundreds of blue and white flags flapped and many drums sounded. Some people danced, some sang, intoxicated with bliss. Many people stood staring, leaning and swaying. Sachinandana walked. Sweet mridanga sounded pleasant to hear. Raising his hands, Gadadhara danced. Raghunatha Dasa and Damodara also danced. Raising his hands, Gadadhara danced. Raising his hands, Gadadhara danced. Raghunatha Dasa and Damodara also danced. Raghunatha Dasa and Damodara also danced. Respecting him, the Lord gave attention to Raghunatha. 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 I attained great bliss seeing you. Respecting him, the Lord gave attention to Raghunatha. I attained great bliss seeing you. Gauranga embraced him. Raghunatha rolled at his feet. On the third day of Magha, Gauranga arrived at Puri with all these devotees. Gauranga arrived at Puri with all these devotees. In the afternoon, Mahaprabhu arrived at Puri. In the afternoon, Mahaprabhu arrived at Puri. Millions of people came to visit him. In the afternoon, Mahaprabhu arrived at Puri. Millions of people came to visit him. Millions of people came to visit him. Many people walked with the Lord with bare feet. They entered the temple and saw Jagannatha with fixed gaze. They looked and tears began to flow. Gauranga became unconscious and fell forcibly on the earth. Looked and tears began to flow. Gauranga became unconscious and fell forcibly on the ground. His hair came undone and his kaupina became loose. He looked miserable with dust-covered body. The devotees chanted the name in the four directions. Sarvabhauma held him in his lap. Sarvabhauma held him in his lap. His hair stood on end like a kadamba flower. Sarvabhauma held him in his lap. His hair chanted the name in four directions. Sarvabhauma held him in his lap. His hair stood on end like a kadamba flower. Thousands of streams of perspiration began to flow. Reviving himself, Chaitanya stood up. He fixed his eyes on the deity Mahavishnu. Sarvabhauma said, "Oh Lord, seeing your form of Jagannatha, your well of prema manifest, you teach people by looking at your form. Mad with Mahabhava, you begin to cry. In front of unmoving Vishnu, you move about. Oh Lord, why do you weep? You are pretending you are directing the son of Nanda. You are directly the son of Nanda. Why do you blind my eyes? Do this to those who do not understand. Do not steal your form from me. You are the holder of Govardhana. You are the master of Vrindavana. You are the life of the gopis. You are the shelter of the shelterless. Those born in the Yadu dynasty did not know you. The unfortunate Yadus knew nothing. Having you in my hand, I will not give you up. Show to me your form holding the flute. On the chest of your golden form is a line by whose power the form of time cannot be seen. On the chest of your golden form is a line by whose power the form of time cannot be seen. Power. The form of time cannot be seen. The Lord said, "O Sarvabhauma, speak something else. Why do you not speak other subjects? Why do you speak various words agitated with illusion? Hearing your words, I plugged my ears. You say, I am Krishna. Why without cause do you make me an offender? From your mouth, topics of Krishna are like nectar. Bhatta, speak about Krishna and soothe my prana." Bhatta said, "Oh Lord, what can I speak but what you make me speak? I'm just a human animal." The Lord said, "There's no use in speaking further. Let's go home now together." After seeing the Aarti, the Lord went to Kashi Mishra's house with his associates. At that time, Sarvabhauma obtained prasada and brought it there. In Gauranga enjoyed, distributed the prasada. All were blissful in receiving prasada. In the large yard of Kashi Mishra's house, many people came to see the Lord. Staying in Mishra's house, merciful Gauranga in great bliss danced and sang songs about Krishna. I cannot describe how many people came and went. There were ever fresh happiness in Mishra's house. Hearing of the Lord's arrival by mouth, hearing of the Lord's arrival by mouth, many inhabitants of Bengal came to see him. Bhatta brought prasada daily. The Lord was blissful on receiving prasada. With joy, Gauranga received the prasada. He distributed prasada to everyone's hands. Before prasada, there was Nam Sankirtana. Everyone ate prasada with attraction to prema. I was fortunate to speak this now. Everyone danced in bliss, clapping their hands. Everyone ate prasada with attraction to prema. I was fortunate to speak this now. Everyone danced in bliss, clapping their hands. I was fortunate to speak this now. Everyone danced in bliss, clapping their hands. Ramananda, Vasu, and Govinda Charana bid farewell. and went to Bengal. Ramananda, Vasu and Govinda Charna bid farewell and went to Bengal. Wanting to see Gauranga again, hundreds of people came with attraction. Srivasa, Keshava Dasa, Siddha Haridasa, all came gathered near Chaitanya. Shantacharya, Vipradasa, Rupa and Sanatana came to see him. Chanting the name, they all became mad with bliss. Merciful Chaitanya gave bhakti door to door. Vipradasa, Rupa and Sanatana came to see him. Chanting the name, they all became mad with bliss. Merciful Chaitanya gave bhakti door to door. Who will receive the holy name? Oh, my brothers, come. Nimai saying this distributed the name of the Lord. By the Lord's mercy, no sinner and no sufferer remained. The Lord gave the name of the Lord everywhere. The great Tirtha of Puri became the abode of bliss. Children, women, and elders chanted the name. Hearing the name, animals and birds danced. Hearing the name, animals and birds danced. The ocean with arms spread danced in front. The ocean with arms spread danced in front. The ocean with arms spread danced in front. Old women, young people and babies danced. Chaste women came to see him on the road. On one side, the ocean began dancing. In the other direction, an ocean of prema rose. The trees and creepers became mad with prema. Snow fell on the pretext of showering tears. Snow fell on the pretext of showering tears. There was constant fresh happiness in Puri. Those who saw know, who should I speak to? Mridangas, kettle drums and kartalas sounded. Among them, my Sachinandana danced. Ramadasa very skillfully played the kettle drum. For that reason, he came constantly to the Kirtana. Ramadasa was a great devotee, attracted to prema. Playing the kettle drum, he walked in front of the Kirtana. In bliss, Prataparudra gave up royal duties and came to Mishra's house constantly to see the dancing. When Mahaprabhu went on Nagara Kirtana, the king followed behind wearing humble clothing. Wearing humble clothing, with hands raised, his body limp. The Lord danced and danced mad with prema. With hands raised, his body limp. The Lord danced and danced mad with prema. With hands raised, his body limp. The Lord danced and danced mad with prema. With half-closed eyes, he stared at the sky. Sometimes he fell on the ground. All men and women became mad with the name of the Lord, mad with prema. The family women came running in lines, mad with prema. The family women came running in lines. Mad with prema, the family women came running in lines. Thousands of people came on four sides. Thousands of people came on four sides. The Lord moved in front, dancing and dancing. In this way, the Lord passed the day. In this way, the Lord passed the day. The Lord passed the day. He spent the night with Ramananda alone. He spent the night with Ramananda alone. One day, Mahaprabhu, with attraction to Krishna, ran in front to catch Mahavishnu. Not considering any obstacle, he ran with attraction. In front, there was a hidden obstacle and he fell on the ground. From that day, the Lord did not go into the temple. He saw the deity from far away. Not considering any obstacle, he ran with attraction. In front, there was a hidden obstacle and he fell on the ground. From that day, the Lord did not go into the temple. He saw the deity from far away, standing at the door of the Bhoga Mandapa. He gazed at Mahavishnu, putting his left hand on the Garuda Stamba. He saw the deity. Putting his left hand on the Garuda Stamba, he saw the deity mad with prema. In this way, for some days, he stayed in Puri. mad with prema in this way for some days. He stayed in Puri, waiting to see Jagannatha out of attraction, wanting to see Jagannatha out of attraction. One day, my Lord at Mishra's house sang about the qualities of Krishna with the devotees. He called Govinda and said that I should go to Advaita Acharya. Taking leave with a letter and an order, I departed for Shantipura and offered respects. Taking leave with a letter and an order, I departed for Shantipura and offered respects. Putting his hand on my back, the Lord gave blessings. Hundreds of tears flowed from my eyes. Hundreds of tears flowed from my eyes. He said, do not cry, Govinda, my life, bringing this to the Acharya, be blissful. Do not cry, Govinda, my life, bringing this to the Acharya, be blissful. He called Govinda and said that I should go to Advaita Acharya. Do not cry, Govinda, my life, bringing this to the Acharya, be blissful. Hearing these words, my eyes flowed with tears. I could not tolerate the arrow of separation from the Lord. How can I tolerate the intense separation from the Lord? Cruel pain arose in my mind. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. That's the end of Govinda Dasera Kadaca. Hare Krishna.